My name is Emily Thompson. I'm 27. Last Saturday at 7:43 p.m., I was standing in the Rosewood Ballroom holding a champagne flute I hadn't sipped from, watching my mother pay the master of ceremonies $300 in cash to make sure he called my career a nice personal choice, instead of reading the actual bio I'd submitted. My sister Sophia's engagement party had 50 guests, a champagne tower with 144 glasses, and a string quartet playing Pachelbel. My mother wore Valentino. My boyfriend Jake wore his only suit, the navy one with the small coffee stain on the left cuff that he'd tried to hide with a Tide pen. My father stood 15 feet away, laughing with Sophia's future father-in-law, Judge Richard Whittaker. I watched my mother slip the bills into the MC's pocket. I watched him nod. I watched him fold my typed paragraph and put it in his jacket without reading it. "Mom," I said. My voice came out quieter than I wanted. "What are you doing?" She turned to me with that smile, the one that looks warm in photographs but feels like frost on skin. "Sweetie, I'm just making sure tonight stays appropriate. Your little nursing job is lovely, but this is Sophia's night. We don't want to overshadow her accomplishments with too much detail." Too much detail? My hands were shaking. I set the champagne glass down on the nearest table before I dropped it. I won Nurse of the Year. Out of 320 staff members at Chicago General. That's not detail, that's personal contentment, my mother said, patting my arm. Which is wonderful. Really. Not everyone needs external validation like your sister does. She glanced at Jake, who was standing by the cocktail hour table, trying to balance a small plate of hors d'oeuvres. "And your boyfriend is sweet, very down to earth." The way she said down to earth made it sound like unemployable. "Jake runs a 340-acre farm that supplies produce to 12 restaurants in the county," I said. My face was burning. "He employs 7 people year-round. He's not—" "Of course, dear." My mother's eyes had already moved past me, scanning the room for someone more important. "Just remember, tonight is about Sophia. Try to blend in." Blend in. Like I was a stain. Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now and what time is it there. I need to take you back 8 years to understand how I got here. I was 19, sitting in my grandfather Hayes's study on Maple Ridge Drive, watching him polish his collection of fountain pens. The room smelled like leather and Old Spice, and the peppermint candies he always kept in a crystal bowl on his desk. Grandpa Hayes was 81 then, with hands that trembled when he wrote, but a mind sharp enough to recite poetry he'd memorized in 1962. "Emily girl," he said, holding up a pen to the light, "you know what your problem is." "I have too many problems to count, Grandpa." He laughed. It was a good laugh, the kind that came from his belly. "Your problem is you think fairness matters. It doesn't. What matters is documentation." I was filling out my nursing school applications at his desk. The FAFSA forms were spread out in front of me like an accusation. My parents had told me that morning they'd already committed my college fund to Sophia's law school tuition, all $87,000 of it. "It's a better investment," my father had said, not looking at me. "You're going to do something that matters," Grandpa Hayes said. He set the pen down carefully. "I've watched you since you were 6 years old, putting Band-Aids on your dolls, making sure everyone got the same size cookie. You're a caretaker. That's not less than being a lawyer. It's different." "Mom and Dad don't think so." "Your parents," he said, and his voice got quieter, "have always needed things to look a certain way. Appearances matter more to them than substance. That's their weakness, and it's going to cost them something important one day." "What?" He looked at me for a long moment. "You." I didn't understand what he meant then. I do now. Grandpa Hayes died 4 years ago, on a Tuesday morning in April. Heart attack. Fast. The funeral was at St. Catherine's, and 140 people came. I was 23, 6 months into my first nursing job at Chicago General. I'd worked a double shift the night before, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., then stayed until noon to help train a new grad. And I drove straight from the hospital to the church in my scrubs because I didn't have time to go home and change. My mother took one look at me and said, "Really, Emily? You couldn't make an effort?" I had been awake for 31 hours. I had saved 2 lives that shift. A cardiac arrest at 3 a.m. and a post-op hemorrhage at 9. My hands still smelled like antiseptic soap. "I came straight from work, Mom. I'm sorry." "Of course you did," she said, adjusting her black Chanel scarf. "Always the martyr." That was the first time I heard it. That phrase. Always the martyr. She would say it again, many times. The reading of the will happened 3 days later, in Attorney Mitchell Crawford's office on Westbrook Avenue. The office had dark wood paneling and law books that looked like they'd never been opened, and a secretary who offered us coffee in actual china cups. Sophia came in heels and a black suit. My parents wore matching expressions of polite grief. I wore the same dress I'd worn to the funeral because it was the only black dress I owned. Mr. Crawford read through the standard things. The house went to my parents. The car went to my father. Some stocks, some bonds. Then he got to the personal effects. "To my granddaughter, Sophia, I leave my law book collection and my brass desk lamp, knowing she will use them well in her legal career." Sophia smiled. My mother reached over and squeezed her hand. "To my granddaughter, Emily." Mr. Crawford paused, cleared his throat. "I leave my fountain pen collection, my study desk, and a letter to be delivered separately." That was it. Pens and a desk. My father actually laughed. It was a short sound, like a cough. "Well, that's appropriate. The nurse gets the pens." My mother's smile was sympathetic, pitying. "At least you got something, honey?" I didn't get the letter for 3 weeks. It came in the mail, in a manila envelope with my name written in Grandpa Hayes' shaky handwriting. No return address. I opened it standing in my apartment kitchen on a Wednesday night after a 12-hour shift. My feet hurt. I had eaten a protein bar for dinner. The envelope contained a single piece of paper. "Emily girl," it said, "if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I won't be there to see how this turns out, but I knew your mother would do what she's always done, make you feel small. So I'm leaving you something they can't take. Trust me. Keep this safe. When the time is right, you'll know. All my love, Grandpa." That was all. No explanation. No something they can't take. Just a cryptic message that made no sense. I read it 4 times. Checked the envelope again. Nothing. I put the letter in my desk drawer and tried to forget about it. 6 months later, I won the Nurse of the Year award at Chicago General's annual ceremony. It was December 15th, a Friday night, in the hospital's conference center. The chief nursing officer announced it in front of 320 staff members. I walked up to accept the plaque and my hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. They read my accomplishments: highest patient satisfaction scores, 0 medication errors in 18 months, mentorship of 12 new graduate nurses, volunteer coordinator for the mobile health clinic that served 3 rural communities. I called my parents from the parking lot at 9:47 p.m. My mother answered on the 4th ring. "I won," I said. I was crying. I couldn't help it. "Mom, I won Nurse of the Year. Out of everyone." There was a pause. Then, "That's nice, sweetie. Your father and I are at Sophia's law firm dinner right now. She's up for junior partner. Can I call you back tomorrow?" She didn't call back. I stopped expecting her to. For the next 2 years, I worked. I picked up extra shifts. I volunteered with the Rural Healthcare Foundation, helping set up mobile clinics in communities that didn't have access to regular medical care. I met Jake at one of those clinics. He'd donated space in his barn for us to set up, donated produce for the families who came. He had dirt under his fingernails and sun lines around his eyes, and he asked me if I wanted to get dinner after we closed up at 7 p.m. We went to a diner. He ordered pie. We talked for 3 hours. That was 18 months ago. My parents met him exactly once, At a family dinner last Christmas. My mother asked him what he did. Jake explained the farm, the organic certification, the restaurant partnerships, the CSA program with 140 member families. My father asked how much farmland was worth these days. Jake said land value was complicated, that he cared more about sustainable practices than market price. My father said, "So you're poor." Jake said, "I'm comfortable." After he left, my mother said, "Emily, sweetie, you can do better. You're a nurse. You could meet a doctor." I didn't bring Jake to family events after that. Not until Sophia's engagement party, when Sophia specifically requested that everyone bring their partners. "I want my whole family there," she'd said on the phone. "Please, Em, it would mean a lot." I should have known better. The engagement party started at 6 p.m. The invitation said, "Cocktail attire." Jake and I arrived at 6:20, walking into the rosewood ballroom with its crystal chandeliers and marble floors, and tables draped in ivory linen. Sophia was at the center of the room in a silver dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her fiancé Marcus beside her in a custom suit. Judge Whitaker, Marcus's father, was holding court near the champagne tower, telling a story that had 6 people laughing. My mother saw us immediately. Her smile went tight. She crossed the room in 8 seconds flat. "Emily, you're late." "We're 20 minutes after start time, Mom. That's normal." "And this is what you're wearing?" She looked at my dress. It was navy blue, knee-length, from Nordstrom Rack. I'd spent $68 on it. It was the nicest thing I owned. "Well, it's practical." Jake extended his hand. "Mrs. Thompson, it's good to see you again." My mother looked at his hand like it might be contagious. She shook it for exactly 1 second. "Jake, welcome." Then, to me, in a lower voice, "The photographer is here. Try not to be in too many of the family photos. We don't want to confuse people about who the focus is." She walked away before I could respond. Jake put his hand on the small of my back. "I can leave if this is going to be hard for you." "No," I said. My jaw was tight. I'm not giving her the satisfaction. We made our way to the cocktail table. I grabbed a glass of champagne. Jake got a beer. We stood near the edge of the room, watching Sophia greet guests like visiting royalty. She was good at this. The air kisses, the hand squeezes, the way she made everyone feel like they were the most important person in the room for exactly 45 seconds before moving on. She saw us eventually, waved, came over with Marcus in tow. "M!" She hugged me. She smelled like Chanel number 5 and hairspray. "I'm so glad you came. And Jake." She hugged him too, though it was the kind of hug that doesn't actually involve touching. "Marcus, this is my sister Emily and her boyfriend Jake." Marcus shook our hands. He had a firm handshake, the kind they teach you in business school. "Nice to meet you both. Sophia's told me a lot about you." I doubted that, but I smiled. "Congratulations on the engagement." "Thanks. We're really excited. My dad's here. I'll introduce you later. He's excited to meet Sophia's family." The MC tapped the microphone at 7:30. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please." The room quieted. The string quartet stopped playing. 50 faces turned toward the small stage at the front of the room. "We're here tonight to celebrate a beautiful couple," the MC said. He was in his 50s, with a voice like he'd done this 500 times before. "Marcus Whitaker and Sophia Thompson. Before we bring them up for a toast, I'd like to tell you a little about the happy couple and their families." This was it, the bio section. I'd submitted mine a week ago, 1 paragraph about my nursing career, my award, my advocacy work. I'd spent an hour writing it, making sure it was professional and relevant without being too much. The MC looked down at his cards. "Let's start with the bride's family. Sophia is the daughter of Robert and Victoria Thompson. She graduated summa cum laude from Georgetown Law, works at Morrison & Hale, and is on track to make junior partner by 30. Applause. My mother beamed. Sophia's father, Robert, is a financial consultant. Her mother, Victoria, is a board member of the Riverside Art Museum. And her sister, Emily, I held my breath, has found personal contentment in her nursing work. Emily believes that helping others is its own reward. That was it. One sentence. No mention of Chicago General. No mention of Nurse of the Year. No mention of the Rural Healthcare Foundation. Just personal contentment. I felt like I'd been slapped. Jake's hand found mine under the table. He squeezed. The MC continued. And let's talk about the groom's family. Judge Richard Whitaker has served on the appellate court for 15 years. I stopped listening. My vision had gone blurry around the edges. I could see my mother across the room, nodding approvingly, champagne glass in hand. I could see Sophia, radiant and oblivious. I could see my father, leaning over to whisper something to the man next to him, both of them chuckling. Jake whispered. We can leave. No. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded flat, hard. I'm staying. Something had shifted inside me. I couldn't name it yet, but it felt like a door closing, or maybe a door opening. The toast started. Marcus's best man went first, telling a story about college that got good laughs. Then my father stood up. He cleared his throat, adjusted his tie, and raised his glass. To my daughter Sophia, he said. My successful daughter. The one who made us proud. He didn't look at me. He didn't need to. Everyone understood what he meant. Sophia has always known what she wanted and gone after it. Law school, career, and now Marcus. He smiled at Marcus. Marcus, you're getting a winner. A woman who knows her worth. Unlike some people, was the implication. To Sophia and Marcus, my father said. To Sophia and Marcus, the room echoed. I didn't drink. I set my glass down carefully on the table. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They felt steady, calm. After dinner, Judge Whitaker approached our table. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with silver hair and the kind of presence that comes from 30 years of people standing when you enter a room. You must be Emily, he said, extending his hand. Richard Whitaker. I stood, shook his hand. Nice to meet you, Judge. Please call me Richard. And this is Jake, I presume? Jake stood too. They shook hands. Jake, Richard said. And something flickered in his expression. Recognition, maybe. Or surprise. Jake? Harrison? Yes, sir, Jake said. Richard's eyebrows went up. The Jake Harrison? From Harrison Sustainable Farms? That's me. I'll be damned. Richard actually laughed, a real laugh. My wife has been trying to get a CSA membership with you for 2 years. Says you're always booked solid. She buys your vegetables at Riverside Market every Saturday. Jake smiled. Tell her to put her name on the waiting list again. We're expanding next season, adding 40 acres. Will do, Richard turned to me. And you're a nurse, your sister mentioned? Yes, at Chicago General. What department? Emergency, but I also coordinate with the Rural Healthcare Foundation. His expression changed again, more serious now, interested. The mobile clinic program? Yes, sir. My wife volunteers with them. She's mentioned a nurse named Emily who runs the immunization drives in Grant County. That's you? I nodded. My throat felt tight. She says you're the reason they vaccinated 340 children last year. Richard looked at me like he was really seeing me for the first time. That's not personal contentment. That's public health leadership. Behind him, I saw my mother watching. Her expression was carefully neutral, but I could see the calculation in her eyes. Thank you, I said quietly. Richard glanced at Jake again. Harrison Farms supplies the vegetables for the clinics, don't they? When we can, Jake said. The foundation doesn't have much budget, so we donate most of it. Most of it? Richard repeated. How much are we talking? Last year? About $14,000 wholesale value. Richard was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Emily, Jake, I'd like to talk to you both more about this. Maybe after the party. I have some questions about expanding the foundation's reach. Of course, I said. He nodded, smiled, and moved on to greet other guests. My mother appeared at my elbow 2 minutes later. What did you say to him? Nothing, Mom. He recognized Jake. Recognized him? From what? From his farm. Apparently, Judge Whitaker's wife is a customer. My mother's jaw tightened. Well, don't monopolize him. He's Marcus's father, not yours. She walked away. I watched her go. Jake leaned down, his mouth near my ear. I really want to leave now. Soon, I said. I promise. But we didn't leave. We stayed through the cake cutting, through more toasts, through the first dance. And at 10:47 p.m., as guests were starting to collect their coats and say their goodbyes, Richard Whitaker approached me again. Emily, he said, could you spare 5 minutes? There's someone I'd like you to meet. He led me to a quiet corner where an older woman was sitting, elegant in a black dress with white hair swept up in a careful twist. This is my wife, Catherine, Richard said. Catherine, this is Emily Thompson, the nurse I was telling you about. Catherine's face lit up. Oh, the Emily from the mobile clinics? Yes, ma'am, I said. She stood, took both my hands in hers. You changed my life, she said simply. I started volunteering because my daughter needed something to do after retirement, and I thought it would be nice. But watching you work, the way you treat every patient like they're the most important person in the room, the way you train the volunteers, the way you never ever make people feel ashamed for not having insurance or money, that's ministry. That's calling. My eyes stung. I blinked hard. Thank you. No, thank you. She squeezed my hands. Richard, didn't you say you had something to discuss with her? Richard nodded. Emily, I'm on the board of the Riverside Community Foundation. We fund healthcare initiatives. I'd like to talk to you about a grant opportunity for the mobile clinic program. Nothing certain yet, but worth a conversation. A grant? I repeated. My brain was moving slowly, trying to catch up. Potentially $120,000 over 2 years, Richard said. Enough to double the number of clinics, hire a part-time nurse practitioner, maybe even get a proper vehicle instead of using borrowed space. I couldn't speak, I just nodded. We'll set up a meeting next week, Richard said. In the meantime, congratulations on raising such a dedicated young woman, Mrs. Thompson. He wasn't talking to me. He was talking to my mother, who had appeared behind us like a ghost. Oh, my mother said. Her smile was strained. Yes, Emily has always been dedicated. You must be very proud, Catherine said, to have a daughter doing such important work. Of course, my mother said. We're proud of both our girls. Sophia with her law career, Emily with her nursing. The way she said nursing made it sound like cleaning toilets. Catherine's expression cooled noticeably. Nursing is a noble profession, and Emily's work goes far beyond bedside care. She's an advocate, a leader. Yes, my mother said tightly. She's always been very independent. The conversation ended shortly after that. Richard and Catherine said their goodbyes. My mother excused herself to talk to other guests. Jake and I finally left at 11:20 p.m., walking out into the October night air that felt like freedom. That was brutal, Jake said when we reached his truck. Yeah. I leaned against the passenger door, looked up at the stars. But did you see my mother's face when Judge Whitaker called me a leader? Jake laughed. I did. I thought she was going to swallow her tongue. We drove home in comfortable silence. Jake's farm was 40 minutes outside the city, down county roads that wound through fields and woods. His house was a restored farmhouse from 1920, white clapboard with a wraparound porch and windows that glowed warm in the darkness. Want to come in? He asked. Yeah. We sat on the porch steps, sharing a beer, listening to the crickets. The sky was full of stars. You couldn't see stars like this in the city. Judge Whitaker called you Jake Harrison, I said. Like you're famous. Jake shrugged. Sustainable farming is a small community. People talk. How small? Small enough that when you win a regional award for organic practices, people remember your name. I turned to look at him. You won an award? 3 years ago. Midwest Sustainable Agriculture Council. It's not a big deal. It's a big deal to me. I rested my head on his shoulder. My mother thinks you're poor. I know. Does it bother you? No. He kissed the top of my head. I know what I'm worth. I don't need her approval. I wished I could say the same. 2 weeks later, I had my meeting with Richard Whitaker and the Riverside Community Foundation Board. It was in a conference room downtown, big windows overlooking the river, 6 board members sitting around a polished table. I brought my laptop, my presentation slides, my 3 years of mobile clinic data. I presented for 30 minutes, showed them the numbers. 340 children vaccinated, 89 adults screened for diabetes, 67 blood pressure checks, 23 referrals to specialists. Showed them the communities. Grant County, population 4,200, nearest hospital 47 miles away. Showed them the need. Richard asked questions, smart questions, the kind that showed he'd done his homework. At the end, he said, Emily, this is exactly the kind of program we want to support. I'm recommending full funding, $120,000 over 2 years, with possibility of renewal. I walked out of that building at 3:47 p.m. feeling like I was floating. I called my mother from the car. Mom, I said, I just got a $120,000 grant for the mobile clinic program. That's nice, honey. Her voice was distant, distracted. Listen, I can't talk long. Sophia and Marcus are having dinner with us tonight to discuss wedding venues. Mom, did you hear me? $120,000. Yes, I heard. That's wonderful. I'm sure you worked very hard. But Emily, really, this isn't the best time. The wedding is in 6 months and there's so much to plan. She hung up. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, staring at nothing. That night, Jake made dinner. Roasted chicken with vegetables from the farm, bread from the local bakery. We ate on the porch as the sun set. My mother didn't care, I said. I know. How do you know? Because she never cares. He said it gently, not cruelly. I don't understand why you keep trying. Because she's my mother. That's not a reason, that's an excuse. And I didn't have an answer for that. The next 3 months were busy. I worked with the foundation to plan the grant rollout. I coordinated with 4 new counties. I hired a part-time nurse practitioner named Sarah Chen, who was fresh out of school and eager to do meaningful work. Jake expanded the farm's donation program, partnering with 2 other local farms to provide produce for the clinics. Sophia's wedding preparations took over every family conversation. The venue, historic mansion, $18,000 rental fee. The dress, Vera Wang, $9,500. The guest list, 250 people. The flowers, peonies and garden roses, $14,000. My mother called me every week with updates I didn't ask for. You'll be a bridesmaid, of course, Sophia said during one of these calls. The dress is blush pink, floor length. I'm sending you the link. The dress cost $380. I bought it. The bridal shower was in early December at my mother's house. 40 women, cucumber sandwiches and champagne punch, games with ribbons and bows. I showed up at 1 p.m. with a gift, a set of Le Creuset cookware, $450. I'd worked an extra shift to afford it. My mother barely acknowledged me. She was too busy playing hostess, making sure everyone saw the elaborate decorations, the custom-made cake, the champagne tower. But Catherine Whitaker was there. She sought me out immediately. Emily, she said, hugging me, how's the grant work going? We talked for 20 minutes. She introduced me to 3 other women who were interested in volunteering. I gave them my contact information, promised to follow up. My mother watched from across the room. Her expression was unreadable. At the end of the shower, as people were leaving, my mother pulled me aside. You know, Emily, it's Sophia's day. You don't need to network. I wasn't networking, Mom. Catherine asked me about the clinics. Still, it's inappropriate. This is about Sophia, not your little volunteer project. It's not a little. I stopped, took a breath. Never mind. I left early, drove to Jake's farm, sat on the porch and cried for the first time in months. I'm tired, I told him. I'm so tired of trying to make her proud. Then stop trying, he said simply. I can't. Why not? I didn't have an answer. 2 weeks before Sophia's wedding, I was cleaning out my apartment closet when I found the envelope from Grandpa Hayes, the one with the cryptic letter. I'd forgotten about it, shoved it in a box with old nursing school notes and tax returns from 2021. I opened it again. Read it again. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I won't be there to see how this turns out, but I knew your mother would do what she's always done, make you feel small. So I'm leaving you something they can't take. Trust me. Keep this safe. When the time is right, you'll know. Something they can't take. I looked at the envelope again. Really looked at it. There was something else inside. Something I'd missed the first time. A small business card, tucked into the corner. Mitchell Crawford, attorney at law, Westbrook Avenue. Grandpa Hayes's lawyer. I called his office the next morning. Got his secretary. Hi, this is Emily Thompson. I'm calling about my grandfather, Mr. Hayes. He passed away 4 years ago, but I just found a card in an envelope he left me, and I was wondering. Oh, the secretary's voice brightened. Emily Thompson. Yes, Mr. Crawford has been waiting for your call. Can you come in tomorrow at 10 a.m.? Waiting for my call? Yes, dear. He'll explain everything. Can you make 10? Yes, I said. My heart was pounding. I'll be there. I told Jake that night. He looked at me across the dinner table, concern in his eyes. Do you want me to come with you? No, I said. I need to do this alone. The next morning, I walked into Mitchell Crawford's office at 9:52 a.m. The same dark wood paneling, the same law books, the same secretary, older now, her hair grayer. She smiled when she saw me. Emily, go right in. He's expecting you. Mr. Crawford stood when I entered. He was in his 70s now, stooped slightly, but his handshake was still firm. Emily, he said, sit, please. I've been holding something for you. Your grandfather left very specific instructions. He pulled a large envelope from his desk drawer. Manila, sealed with wax. My name written across the front in Grandpa Hayes's handwriting. He told me to wait, Mr. Crawford said. Wait until you called. He said you'd know when the time was right. He handed me the envelope. This contains documents, explanations, and a letter. Read it carefully. If you have questions, I'm here. My hands were shaking as I broke the wax seal. Inside, a thick letter, folded documents, and photographs. The letter was dated April 2019. A week before Grandpa Hayes died, I started reading. Dear Emily girl, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and your mother is already doing what I knew she would do, pushing you to the side, making you feel like you don't matter. I'm sorry I couldn't stop this while I was alive. I tried, Emily. I had conversations with your parents that went nowhere. Your mother doesn't hear reason. She only hears documents. Do you remember sitting in my study when you were 19? I told you that you were a caretaker, that it mattered. I meant it. But I also knew your mother would never see it that way. So I started documenting. I've been watching for 8 years, watching them give Sophia every advantage while you worked yourself raw. Watching them take your college fund and spend it on her law school. Watching them dismiss your achievements while celebrating hers. Watching them shape the family story to erase you. I couldn't change their minds, but I could leave you proof. Inside this envelope you'll find 1. My original will, not the one read in Mitchell's office. The one they read was incomplete. This is the real one. Dated March 2019, properly witnessed and notarized. 2. Bank statements showing that the $87,000 college fund they said was Sophia's was actually your fund, established by me when you were born. I have 19 years of deposit records proving this. 3. A trust account in your name containing $1.2 million. I've been funding it since you were 6 years old. Every Christmas, every birthday, every time you did something kind that your parents ignored. $50 here, $200 there. It adds up. 4. Documentation showing that I contacted your parents in 2017, 2018, and 2019, asking them to treat you fairly. Their responses are included. Read them when you're ready. 5. Recordings. Audio on the USB drive of 3 conversations I had with your mother, where she explicitly said she views you as less important than Sophia because nursing isn't a real career like law. 6. Letters from people who saw your worth when your parents didn't. Your nursing professors, your clinical supervisors, families from the mobile clinic. I collected 47 letters over 5 years. I asked them to write down what they saw in you. The trust is yours. Tax-free, already processed. Mitchell has the full documentation. Your parents don't know about it. Sophia doesn't know about it. I set it up this way because I knew that if I gave it to you while I was alive, your mother would find a way to take it. She would guilt you, manipulate you, convince you that Sophia needed it more. But I also knew that one day you'd reach a breaking point. One day you'd realize that you don't need their approval. One day you'd be ready to stand up for yourself. That day is today. Use this money however you want. Pay off student loans, buy a house, expand the clinic program, travel the world. I don't care. It's yours. But here's what I do care about. Don't let them make you small. Don't let them convince you that caring for people is less valuable than making money. Don't let them take your light. You are not the other daughter. You are not personal contentment. You are Emily Thompson, the nurse who vaccinated 340 children. You are the granddaughter who sat with me in my study and promised to always help people. You are the girl who puts Band-Aids on dolls. You matter. You've always mattered. And when you're ready, not today, maybe not for months, I want you to show them this letter. Show them that I saw them. Show them that I chose you. Not because Sophia doesn't deserve love, but because you deserve recognition. All my love, Emily girl. Your Grandpa Hayes. I read the letter 3 times. Then I opened the folder of documents. Everything he'd promised was there. The bank statements, the trust documentation, the letters from my professors, the recordings on a USB drive labeled "For Emily's Protection." The letters from people at the mobile clinic made me cry. A woman I'd helped get insulin, a teenager I'd vaccinated, a volunteer who said I'd taught her that medicine is about dignity. 47 letters, proof that I'd mattered to someone. The recordings, I couldn't listen to those yet. Seeing my mother's voice transcribed in the written notes Mitchell had included was enough. She'll never amount to anything substantial, my mother had said to Grandpa Hayes in July 2018. Nursing is fine for some people, but Emily could have done so much more. She's just limited. Limited? That was the word she'd used. I sat in Mitchell Crawford's office for 90 minutes, reading everything. He brought me water, tissues, waited patiently. Finally, I looked up. What do I do now? Whatever you want, he said gently. The money is yours. The documents are yours. The decision of whether or not to share them is yours. He wanted me to show them. He wanted you to have the choice. I thought about that. About choice. About the fact that my entire life, I'd never felt like I had one. I want to wait, I said. Until the time is right. Mitchell nodded. Then wait. I left his office at 12:47 p.m. with the envelope tucked in my bag. I drove to the farm, found Jake in the greenhouse, transplanting tomato seedlings. "Hey," he said when he saw me. Then he saw my face. "What happened?" I showed him everything. The letter, the documents, the trust. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Your grandfather loved you." "I know. What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet." "But you will?" "Yeah," I said. "I will." Sophia's wedding was 4 days away. I went to the final dress fitting. I went to the rehearsal dinner. I smiled in all the right places. I hugged relatives I hadn't seen in years. I listened to toasts about how beautiful and accomplished Sophia was. And I waited. The wedding was on Saturday, December 14th, at the Riverside Mansion. It was elegant, white roses and twinkling lights, and a ceremony that made half the guests cry. Marcus looked nervous in a good way. Sophia looked radiant. My parents looked proud. I stood in the bridesmaid line wearing my $380 blush pink dress and held my breath. The reception was in the ballroom. 300 guests, a 10-piece band, salmon and filet mignon, a 7-tier cake. I sat at table 12 with other bridesmaids and their dates. Jake was at table 18 with extended family members. We'd been deliberately separated. The toasts started at 8:30 p.m. The best man was funny. The maid of honor was touching. Then my father stood up. "My daughter Sophia," he said, "has always known her worth. From the time she was a little girl, she understood that success requires hard work, dedication, and focus. She never settled for less than the best." He went on for 5 minutes. Every word was about Sophia's achievements, her grades, her career, her ambition. He never mentioned me, not once. When he finished, my mother stood up. "I'd like to add," she said, "that raising Sophia has been the greatest joy of my life. Watching her become this accomplished, beautiful woman has made every sacrifice worth it. Every sacrifice, like the $87,000 college fund that was supposed to be mine, like the attention I never got, like the recognition that went only to one daughter." Judge Richard Whitaker stood up next. He wasn't scheduled to speak, but he tapped his champagne glass anyway. "If I may," he said, "I'd like to say something about the Thompson family. My wife Catherine and I have had the pleasure of getting to know both of Sophia's parents and her sister Emily over the past few months." My mother's smile went tight. "Sophia is clearly a remarkable young woman," Richard continued, "but I want to take a moment to recognize Emily, because in my 30 years on the bench, I've learned that character isn't about titles or salaries. Character is about impact, and Emily's impact is profound." The room was quiet now. Every face turned toward the judge. "Emily runs a mobile healthcare program that serves 4 counties," Richard said. "Last year alone, she provided care to over 500 patients who would otherwise have no access to medical services. She coordinated vaccination drives, diabetes screenings, blood pressure checks. She trained 18 volunteers. She secured $120,000 in grant funding." My mother was staring at her champagne glass. "And she did all of this while working full-time at Chicago General Hospital, where she was named Nurse of the Year out of 320 staff members." Richard looked directly at me. "Emily, you represent the kind of service and dedication that makes communities stronger. Your grandfather would be proud." My throat was tight. I couldn't speak. "In fact," Richard said, and something in his tone changed, "I had a conversation with Mr. Hayes before he passed away. He spoke very highly of you, said you were the one who really understood what family meant." My mother's head snapped up. "He also mentioned," Richard continued carefully, "that he'd made provisions to ensure you'd be taken care of. I hope that's proven true." He was giving me an opening. I looked at Jake. He nodded slightly. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but I stood. "Thank you, Judge Whitaker," I said. My voice carried across the silent ballroom. "My grandfather did make provisions for me. He left me a letter and some documents. I'd like to share part of that letter now, if that's okay. Sophia looked confused. Marcus looked curious. My mother looked pale. Emily, my father said warningly. This isn't the time. No, Dad, it is. I pulled the letter from my purse. I'd brought it with me, just in case. Grandpa Hayes wrote this a week before he died. He asked me to read it when the time was right. I think that time is now. I unfolded the letter. My hands were steady. Dear Emily girl, I read aloud. If you're reading this, then I'm gone, and your mother is already doing what I knew she would do, pushing you to the side, making you feel like you don't matter. I'm sorry I couldn't stop this while I was alive. My mother stood up. Emily, stop this right now. I've been watching for 8 years, I continued. Watching them give Sophia every advantage while you worked yourself raw. Watching them take your college fund and spend it on her law school. That's not true, my father said sharply. It is true. I pulled out the bank statements. These are statements from the education fund Grandpa Hayes set up for me when I was born. 19 years of deposits, $87,000. The exact amount you spent on Sophia's law school. The exact amount you told me was always hers. Silence. Emily. My mother's voice was desperate now. This is Sophia's wedding. Don't do this. I'm not doing this, Mom. You did this, you and Dad. 8 years of making me feel invisible. 8 years of telling me my career didn't matter. 8 years of dismissing every achievement because it wasn't law school or corporate success. I looked at Sophia. This isn't about you. You didn't know. But they did. Sophia's face had gone white. Is this true? The college fund was Emily's? My father didn't answer. Grandpa Hayes left me $1.2 million in a trust, I said. Money he'd been saving since I was 6 years old. Every time I did something kind that you ignored, he put money in that account. Every birthday, every Christmas, every time I chose to help people instead of seeking glory. I held up the documents. He also left recordings of conversations with Mom where she said I was limited and would never amount to anything substantial. He left letters from 47 people saying otherwise. He left proof that you lied about the college fund, that you systematically erased my accomplishments, that you shaped the family story to make me disappear. My voice cracked. He saw me when you wouldn't. Catherine Whitaker was crying. Several other guests were whispering. My mother's face was red. How dare you? This is a family matter. No, Mom. A family matter would have been resolved in private. But you made my worth a public statement. At Sophia's engagement party, you paid someone $300 to call my career personal contentment. You've spent years telling anyone who would listen that I was the disappointing daughter. I folded the letter carefully. Grandpa Hayes wanted me to know that I'm not disappointing. I never was. The problem wasn't me. It was you. I looked at Sophia. I love you. I'm sorry your wedding has become about this. But I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I turned and walked out of the ballroom. Jake followed. We didn't stop until we reached his truck. I was shaking. He wrapped his arms around me. You did it, he said softly. I did it. How do you feel? I thought about it. Free? My phone started ringing 5 minutes later. My mother. I declined the call, then my father, then Sophia. I declined them all. At 10:47 p.m., I got a text from Sophia. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Can we talk? I texted back. Yes, but not tonight. We went home to the farm. I slept for 11 hours straight. The next morning, I woke up to 37 missed calls and 89 text messages. Most from family members, some from people who'd been at the wedding. One from Mitchell Crawford saying, "Well done." I blocked my parents' numbers. Sophia called at 1 p.m. I answered. She said. She was crying. I'm so sorry. You didn't know. I should have known. I should have noticed. All those years they treated you differently, and I didn't see it. It's not your fault, isn't it? I benefited from it. I got the college fund. I got the attention. I got everything, and you got nothing, and I never even asked why. I was quiet. Marcus and I are cutting our honeymoon short, Sophia said. We're going to stay and deal with this. I want to make things right. You can't make it right, Soph. It's done. Then I want to try, please. You're my sister. We met for coffee 3 days later. Just the two of us. She asked me everything about the mobile clinics, about Jake, about the years she hadn't paid attention. I told her all of it. At the end, she said, I'm going to talk to Mom and Dad. This isn't okay. It won't change anything. Maybe not. But I need to say it anyway. She did. I don't know what that conversation looked like. But 2 weeks later, I got a formal letter from my parents' attorney. They wanted to discuss a resolution. I sent back a one-sentence response through Mitchell Crawford. There's nothing to discuss. I never spoke to my parents again. 6 months later, I bought a house. Small, 2 bedrooms, with a garden that Jake helped me plant. I used part of Grandpa Hayes's money to expand the mobile clinic program, hired 2 more nurse practitioners, bought an actual medical van, partnered with 3 additional counties. We reached 1,200 patients that year. Jake and I got engaged in September. No big party. Just us on the porch watching the sunset, him handing me his grandmother's ring. Your family's going to hate this, I said. Your family's going to love it, he corrected. Because by then, I'd met his parents, his 3 sisters, his 12 nieces and nephews. They'd welcomed me like I'd always been there. Sophia came to visit once a month. We rebuilt our relationship slowly, carefully. She left her law firm and started doing pro bono work for immigrants and asylum seekers. She said watching me stand up for myself had made her realize she didn't like the person she'd become. I believed her. On the anniversary of Grandpa Hayes's death, I visited his grave. It was a Tuesday morning in April, exactly like the day he'd died. I brought white roses and a framed photo of me at the mobile clinic van. I did it, Grandpa, I said. I stood up, I walked away, I chose myself. The wind rustled through the trees. I like to think that was him, saying he knew I would. If you're watching this and you've ever been the child who was overlooked, the one who was told their dreams were too small, or their career wasn't good enough, or their worth was just personal contentment, I need you to hear this. You are not too much. You are not too little. You are not disposable. And if someone can't see your value, that's not a reflection of your worth. That's a reflection of their vision. I spent 27 years trying to make my parents proud. It never worked because their goalposts were always moving. The real breakthrough came when I stopped trying to meet their standards and started meeting my own. Grandpa Hayes gave me money. But more than that, he gave me proof. Proof that someone had seen me, proof that my work mattered, proof that I wasn't crazy for feeling erased. Sometimes that proof is all we need. If you've had to walk away from family to protect your peace, type "I walked away" in the comments. If you chose to stay and set boundaries, type "I stayed and fought." Both are brave. Both are valid. If this story meant something to you, check the description for more stories just like this one. Thank you for being here. And remember, you matter. You've always mattered.